Good morning and welcome to today's 10 at 10. Today we're going to look here at audit. We're going to look at an overview of the audit implications around coronavirus. So today I'm joined by Colin and I'm joined by Mike, both who are part of our technical team and who are former CARB reviewers. So what we want to talk about is the overview of auditing, the issues and considerations. Now, we are being asked lots of questions on this, so that's why we're streaming this session. What we're going to talk about is relevant for UK auditors, UK companies, Irish auditors, and Irish companies. Now, throughout this session, if you do have any specific questions, whether you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, if you put your questions into the comment box below, myself and the team will pick them up here and we will answer any questions that we can for you. And we are building a specific auditing resource for COVID-19. So we're working on that and we have that scheduled to come out next week. And possibly we'll do a full hour-long webinar. But today at our 10 and 10, it's just about asking questions, dealing with some of the initial considerations and concerns, and we will get that material out to you as soon as possible. So any questions that you have, put them in the comment box, put them in the chat box below, and we'll pick them up here, and myself and the two guys will answer the question. Colin, maybe to start with yourself, what kind of questions have you been fielding this week, Colin, in relation to audit? Oh, so I thought Colin was very, very still there for a minute, but it actually looks like Colin is more than still. It looks like that we've actually lost Colin somewhere in the internet. So hopefully Colin will come back in. So Mike, let's just put you into the hot seat, given that you're so well prepared, and it was you who's going to lead this session, not. Mike, I know you've been on Knowledge Hub, answering questions for our members. What type of questions are you getting in relation to audit? What are the problems here, Mike?
Yeah, so the problems, as we're seeing them, people are picking up audit files that, maybe haven't been looked at in a while, and the problems are mainly of a disclosure nature. Okay, so what issues do we need to disclose? Or what issues need to be disclosed in the accounts? The circumstances have certainly changed over the past couple of weeks and months, and how do we address that?
Yeah, Mike, like yourself, myself, only 2 weeks ago, when we were, sorry, 3 weeks ago it is now, before total shutdown, we're working on some audit opinions, but the circumstances that have evolved, and what's happened over the last 3 weeks, auditing has fundamentally changed. Like, because Mike, we can get deep into the auditing standards here, but if we take a step back and just look at this practically, the real issue with auditing is, have we got sufficient appropriate audit evidence on which to form an opinion? So have we got sufficient appropriate audit evidence in which to form an opinion? Signing an audit opinion right now, post-balance sheet events, going concern, provisions, impairments. Like right here, right now, if we have tangible assets or intangible assets on a balance sheet, like when you look at section 27 of FRS 102 in relation to impairments, it talks about external circumstances that indicate the possibility of impairments. Well, what more can we have? We're having an economic meltdown at a global level. There's going to be impairments. And the big issue is, well, do you have sufficient appropriate audit evidence to sign an audit opinion right now? Colin, you're back to us there. We lost you for a second. What kind of questions have you been fielding this week in relation to auditing, Colin?
Well, in terms of it really all comes around. It comes down to basically, what you've been saying for it sounds like for ages, but like for the last 10 days anyway, is about the audit report. Signing off an audit report. What are the implications on that? Should we be signing? Should we not be signing? Everything's moving so fast in terms of, say, as Mike said, regarding disclosures, impairments, various things like that. And it's what you said, like, you know, in order to sign the audit report, in order to date the audit report, you have to be able to conclude that you've got sufficient appropriate audit evidence. And this obviously
let's take a step back here, though. Let's take a step back here, Colin, right? Because I know some auditors are being put under serious pressure to sign off audit reports. And first of all, so if somebody's putting you under pressure to sign off an audit report, and you don't feel you have sufficient appropriate audit evidence, if you don't feel you have sufficient appropriate audit evidence, well, then they're potentially imposing a limitation on the scope of the audit. So in terms of creating space for yourself as an auditor, to cite sufficient appropriate audit evidence, and if the directors are pushing to sign, well, they may be imposing a limitation on the scope of the audit, which obviously nobody wants, because impose limitation scopes on the audit potentially could result in resignations. But Colin, think about the directors here for a second. Like, I'm a director of a company. Am I really going to sign off an audit report right, or a director's report right now?
Yeah,
I think that the first line here on auditing, an audit report sign off is, should directors be approving financial statements?
Well, this is exactly it. Like in term, like it's clear, even from you know, practical, and even from the Companies Act, you know, they should be signing off where it's true and fair. And in the current climate, with everything that's going on, and with everything that kind of Mike went on during the week about, well, look, disclosures, impairments, you know, fair values, just like provisions, liabilities, you know, does you know, say for example, if it's a potential, maybe a charity or whatever, does this crisis mean that there could be a, you know, a contingent liability being enacted or something along those lines? Like you're asking directors a lot in, you know, to sign off, let alone the auditor. And
Colin, one of the questions that we're getting is about regulated entities that have deadlines. Okay, now obviously, from a company's registration office perspective, you know, the deadlines have been deferred for filing, but now you've got regulatory authorities that have deadlines. Let's just focus on the charity sector specifically for a second. I know that you were looking at the Irish charities regulator during the week. And they have now deferred all reporting timelines, haven't they?
Yeah. So they've pushed it similar enough. I think to the Companies Office. They've pushed the reporting requirements out till 30th of June. So if you've got an annual report, or if you've got a return to get into the charities regulator, they've all been pushed out. Like, so that's given some breathing space to the charities, which is welcome, and it's only fair.
And my understanding in relation to charity funding, like there's issues around directors approving financial statements. Now, for most companies, they can meet virtually and they can hold directors meetings virtually, but there's an issues around directors approval of financial statements. There's issues then around auditors signing financial statements. There's issues around the holding of AGMs. Like right now, with everything in free fall, we're not saying that you can't sign any audit reports, but what I am definitely saying is you as auditor can only sign audit reports in certain circumstances. Like, I have come across anecdotally, Colin, companies that are absolutely booming during this crisis, that are sitting on massive cash piles, that are in an industry sector, are part of a group that is basically, it's not just that it's corona proof, it's corona profitable. So some of those entities, it may be possible to sign off audit reports that, yes, there will be risks, yes, there will be uncertainties, but from a going concern perspective and from an impairment perspective of assets, that perhaps they can sign off audit opinions. Do yourself and Mike agree with that thinking, or what's your thought process?
Well, I would kind of agree in terms of that, but still, you got to take into account like the overall global and even the, you know, the countrywide aspect. You know, everyone's shutting down. You know, I think Mike alluded to during the week, you know, consumer sentiment is probably hitting rock bottom. You've got, you know, there is no consumer spending at the moment, you know, so irrespective of you know, those bulletproof companies, you're still talking, you know, potential risks out there.
Yeah, because say the bulletproof companies, right? The food sector, the agri sector, the online businesses, they're booming, and they could be booming right now, but if this goes on for 2 months or 3 months, well, even the bulletproof ones, we don't really know what the scenario is.
You know, there last night, I think was announced, is it 500,000 people signing, having some kind of assistance from the social welfare. So, you know, like there's your potential customer base in terms of, you know, spending. Yeah, like you're right. There are some and like even entities who are, you know, my concern will be entities who are getting government funding. You know, we don't know where we are now in terms of where the exchequer. Well, we know where the exchequer figures are at the moment. They're heading towards the toilet. But you know, in terms of where are we going to be funding for all these not-for-profits, funding for all these schemes out there, where, you know, they may have these, there are agreements in place. They may have the funding agreed for the next 2 years, but in reality, where is the actual money going to come from?
Okay, so I know Colin, yourself and Mike have spent most of your week this week, if not preparing material for accountants, you've spent most of your week in Knowledge Hub answering questions. Okay, so you're answering questions. Our Knowledge Hub members, they get in there, they ask a question, you answer it. Okay, what kind of questions are you getting in? Are you seeing people that are being pressurized to sign audit opinions that don't really want to, or what type of stuff is coming up?
Yeah, like I suppose we are seeing a lot of people who are kind of saying, well, you know, this audit report, it needs to be signed off next week, or if there's a deadline next week, you know, and a lot of people are struggling because they know, okay, well, we don't have enough information, or we have a cash flow that, you know, we can't stand over any kind of cash flow, or we can't do the normal stress testing that we would do in our cash flows because we just don't know where we stand. And I suppose it's, you know, it's kind of that's one of the issues we're seeing at the moment, that, you know, just the pressure that people who are under pressure to get audits out, and there's a bit of uncertainty as to whether they can do that or not.
There's a catch-22 here, Mike, that I discussed with somebody last night. And the catch-22 is, well, Des, if we have a substantial number of audits, so we have a substantial number of audits on our desk, that if we can't sign the audit report, we can't really expect the client to pay us. So now there's this underlying issue bubbling around auditor independence. The auditors who are signing off audit reports to get the job across the line, to get the fee out, this is uncharted fee dependency issues, but it is a real issue. And so the auditors, you know, my proposal here is that auditors go down the route of interim fees. They go down the route of interim fees and get the fees out. But I just think we need to be very, very careful here. The clients that are pressurizing, why are they pressurizing? Like for example, you know, I use this sometimes in my videos. You'll have heard me saying it, in it together, because we're in this together. That's the bottom line. We're in this together. But who right now is being pressurized by anybody for audited financial statements? Now, I know that directors want financial statements, because directors know that the longer this goes on, and we might talk about financial reporting, subsequent events, directors want this issue resolved. But you see, practically, banks are not looking for audited financial statements. Banks have much bigger fish to fry because they're looking at skyrocketing unemployment levels, a plummeting economy. So banks are not pushing for audit. Group audits, like I don't know what the gateway is, but if you look at how this came across the world, it came across, started in the East, came to Europe, came to Italy. So, you know, if we have people that are group parents in Europe, well, if we have people that are group parents in Europe, the parent companies in Europe can't be forcing sign off either. Now, larger companies definitely are pushing, and our understanding is we don't really know, but obviously the guys have contacts and connections in the big four, and we don't really know, but our understanding is that the big four are almost taken on a case-by-case basis, and that some clients are being signed off. But who needs these audits finalized now? Who needs the audits finalized now? And that's our biggest concern here today. Colm, let's talk about some of the specific issues once we've dealt with the do not be pressurized into signing, limitation of scope, ethical considerations, and the very, very basic. We could go through the whatever 40 odd auditing standards, but have you got sufficient appropriate audit evidence? Colm, let's get more into the fundamentals. So, going concern is a problem. What else?
Well, you're starting off. You're starting off at a situation. You've done your planning. You've already done your planning. You could be well down. You're looking at sign off, but now you've got to go back and revisit. Start to revisit your planning. Has obviously all this situation has probably changed how you're approaching your audit completely. You've got how have you now addressed these new risks that are there from COVID-19?
So even those ones that were nearly there, Colm, as COVID-19 has evolved over the last 3 weeks, this is one of these prime examples where ISA 300 talks about you've got to reassess your plan.
Yeah.
ISA 315 talks about reassessing your risk. So now even if you're fully completed, you've got to go back and take a look.
And even if you're looking to start an audit, like this is going to have an impact on your understanding of, say, their internal controls. How are you going to evaluate the design and implementation of those controls? Can you do walkthrough testing? So like this has, I've been going through the ISAs, and every single one of the ISAs, there's an impact there somewhere. Especially if you're talking about, say, even the basic like fraud, you're talking about the maybe unscrupulous people out there, the possibility of fraud from fraudulent financial reporting, the issues over, say, access to staff, restrictions on travel, access to premises. These all need to be these all need to be factored into your fraud considerations. You've got obviously professional skepticism. This is the big thing out there now. Are you pushing back? And this is going to cause problems probably for auditors, where you're pushing back on management. You're challenging their judgments and their assumptions, and it would be fundamental to it.
Colm, I know you've referred there that you're going through each individual standard. What we're doing, folks, is we're basically building a coronavirus complete audit workshop. So the coronavirus complete audit workshop, we're probably going to get everything together for that, and that'll go out next week. We do have a webinar coming up next week where Colm is going to begin to share some of the very specific details. But Colm, I think it's really important in case people missed this. It's really important in case people missed this. Every auditing standard is impacted somehow